The red arrow points to the flexible brake line on the front of the car that needs to be replaced. The yellow arrow points to the fitting on the hard brake line that needs to be released using an 11mm flared nut wrench on the hard line and a 17mm wrench holding the rubber line. The green arrow indicates where the flexible line connects to the caliper. You will need a 14mm flared nut wrench for this. You're going to want to remove the line at the fender connection and not the caliper first. If you try and remove it from the caliper first, the line cannot turn freely and will bind. Begin by pulling the line out from the mounting bracket on the strut, yellow arrow. There should be a rubber grommet on the line to protect it, red arrow. Remove the mounting clip that holds the line to the body bracket by pulling it out with a set of pliers. Some people like to remove this after you separate the lines, but I'd like to do it first. You're going to be supporting the lines with 2 wrenches. Once the line is open, brake fluid will get everywhere. Brake fluid is very slippery. You don't want to make a mess trying to get this off once there is fluid on it. The required tool is an 11mm flared nut wrench, red arrow, that fully wraps around the brake line nut, yellow arrow. If you use a standard wrench, then there is a high chance of rounding off the corners and permanently damaging the hard brake lines. These fittings are not very strong and will become stripped if you don't use one of these wrenches. The other disastrous thing that can happen is that the fitting can get stuck to the rest of the hard line. The fitting is supposed to turn and rotate on the end of the line, but sometimes it becomes too corroded to break free. When this happens, the fitting and the line will usually twist together and it will break the line in half. Be careful when you are removing this fitting to make sure you are not twisting the line. You should counterhold the flexible line with a 17mm wrench, red arrow, while turning the hard brake line with an 11mm flared nut wrench, yellow arrow. With the line separated, you can see the delicate flare on the end of the hard line, red arrow, and some of the corrosion that has built up, yellow arrow. Never put any sort of Teflon tape or Loctite on the threads, yellow arrow, or the fitting. With the line separated, you can use a 14mm flared nut wrench and remove the other end from the caliper. The rear brake lines on the 944 have a hard line going into the caliper, red arrow, and the flexible connection line is located under the trailing arm, yellow arrow. Even though these lines are out of the way of most road dirt, debris, and weather, they still need to be inspected and replaced. The procedure is exactly the same with the front lines. Make sure to support the flexible line with the 17mm wrench and turn the fitting on the hard line with an 11mm flared nut wrench. Installation is the reverse of removal. You must properly bleed the entire brake system after replacing your brake lines. Do not attempt to drive the vehicle until you have properly bled the complete system. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out another video in this series.